Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From Cardinals headquarters, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Oh, it is a football Friday. Days away from the Week 1 season opener, something that felt like months, weeks we've been talking about this. But now it is here, 48 hours away, Cardinals and Washington Redskins to kick off 2018.
Yeah, there's nothing like the home opener, and glad they're obviously at home. This team needs to get off to a good start. But, yeah, just a lot of buzz about the Arizona Cardinals. We're all wondering, what are they going to look like? I mean, they didn't really show a lot in the preseason, and they were vanilla for a reason. So it'll be interesting to see not only the offense, the defense, the special teams. A lot of excitement in the Valley, though.
Well, you got a new head coach, new coaching staff, new quarterbacks, new offense, new defense. I mean, basically, yeah, there'll be familiar faces, but what we saw in the preseason, I got the feeling this week that what we saw, we didn't really see as far as what is coming in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about Mike McCoy, and it's probably not, good to evaluate one game, but that's all we're going to be able to talk about on Monday. Usually give him about 25% of the season, 4 games, but he didn't show a whole lot, and I think everyone thinks they're going to come out and run the football, and they probably will, but he's going to have a lot of multiple formations. And he said anybody wearing a jersey on offense, you have a role come game day, whether it's a small role, medium role, or a big role. And I think it all starts with David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, and Ricky Seals-Jones.
This is Cards Cover 2. We come to you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 p.m. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Of course, we invite your questions via social media. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. Hashtag Cards Cover 2 using the number 2. All right, let's take off on this Friday, and here is what's ahead on the show today. David Johnson versus Adrian Peterson. Teammates just a year ago, now on opposite sides of the field, running the football for their respective teams. How does Larry Fitzgerald feel about this season, his 15th? We talked to Larry Michael, the Redskins play-by-play voice, and Brandon Natus joins us with your questions via social media. All that ahead on this Friday's edition of Cards Cover 2. But first, the news of the day, and it should not come as a surprise, but Marcus Golden will not play. Jermaine Gresham is officially listed as questionable. Those two were the really big ones that head coach Steve Wilks addressed here on Friday. And again, when you don't practice, as Golden did not, because still coming back from that ACL, I think it was really, really doubtful and now officially ruled out for Sunday.
Yeah, and Coach Wilks kind of give us an idea of what he's expecting when it comes to guys that are on the injury report if they don't practice on Thursday. And now there could be exceptions, so it's a week-to-week proposition, but he's not practicing with the team yet, so he's still rehabbing. He continues to rehab. He hasn't had any setbacks. The main thing is when he does come back, you really don't want to have any setbacks.
The other players on the injury report as far as being listed as questionable, TJ Logan, Robert Kimdichie, and Olsen Pierre. I would expect all 3 of those players to be okay and up on Sunday. Gresham, though, will be a big question mark, and it'll be interesting to see whether it comes down to pregame warmups or they're just being cautious and say, go through warmups, but we'll just dress 2 tight ends on this Sunday.
And that may be the option. Again, he's much closer than Golden, so it's just a matter of time whether it's the first week, second week. But he has been practicing now. And if he does play, can you afford to dress a guy that may only play 20 snaps? And maybe, obviously, he's got to get into football condition. You watched that game last night. Offenses have struggled in the preseason because the starters didn't play. So I agree with you. They're going to have to go possibly with 2 tight ends, and that would be Ricky Seals-Jones and Gabe Holmes. And we know they're going to adjust the fullback and Derek Coleman, likely have an extra blocker to help Andre Smith with Ryan Kerrigan on the right side. So they're game planning for this. If Gresh is in there, that's great because he's a tenacious blocker. He's really good in the red zone. He's a guy that is willing to be physical in the running game. They can use him. However, you want to make sure you can play the entire season.
Yeah, Gresham tore his Achilles last season in the season finale, so possibly we see him on Sunday, although right now, at least in my opinion, I would not expect to see him on the field. So overall, the health is good. And then you brought up an important point just moments ago about the conditioning, something you asked Coach Wilks about here, because one, it's the first game, not a lot of reps in the preseason for any of the starters. You're going across the board outside of a handful of players. And now all of a sudden you're asking these players to go 60 minutes, depending on the weather situation. It's going to be hot on Sunday. Yeah, they're indoors. But Wilks made it sound like, look, we're prepared for this, and he expects no problems with his players.
Yeah, once again, 4 outdoor practices at the stadium in Glendale, I guess State Farm Stadium now. When you look at it, though, they've been practicing outside since they've been here. The only thing they do indoors is they do their walkthrough. So from that standpoint, they should be ready. Now, just to give you an example, last night, Julio Jones, world-class athlete, just looks like muscles and great shape. He led them down the field on that first drive. Well, he tapped out. He asked to come out of the game because I talked to Larry Fitzgerald about this today. He said when you go on an 8-9 play drive, that first possession, he said it takes a lot out of you. You're hyped for the game, then you got to settle down. And so, here's the Falcons getting criticized for not having Julio Jones in the game. Now, granted, they're in short and goal there, 4th and 1. They didn't get in. But that's part of it because a lot of these guys did not play in the preseason. But the fact is the Cardinals been practicing outside. I think that will help them. That's something to look for from both teams when we get to Sunday.
It is a big game for several players. A lot of rookies going to be seeing their first NFL action. Center Mason Cole going to keep that consecutive starting streak alive. Will be up to 105 if you go all the way back to high school in his 4 years at Michigan. Coach Wilks today mentioning that Cole has answered the challenge as far as being the communicator all along that offensive front. Asked about other player, one specific player Coach Wilks was asked about, Robert Kimdichie, someone that people have been talking about a lot this offseason. Coach Wilks making a strong statement about his defensive tackle.
Adrian, still a hard-nosed runner, talk to the guys about that.
We'll try to get to that in a moment. That was Coach Wilks talking about Adrian Peterson. Certainly the quote from Coach Wilks was he needs to dominate, talking about Kimdichie. And you hear that, and then it's just the quote itself, but the whole context of it was this is what we expect out of him. He needs to be that player. Let's hear from Coach on Kimdichie.
Well, Robert has missed some time the last couple of weeks, and I think he's fresh. He's ready to go. I pulled him to the side yesterday and talked to him a little bit, and he seems like he's in a good place. His foot is feeling better, and he needs to dominate. We talk about winning the one-on-ones across the board, not just at the receiver DB position, but as a 3 technique. You one-on-one with that guard, you need to show up. And so I'm not putting any pressure on him. I'm just telling him the expectations, and he's ready to accept those and go out and have a good game.
This is the reality of Robert Kimdichie. Now, again, when healthy, he can be very productive. The problem is he hasn't been able to get through some of these nagging injuries, the high ankle sprain, the calf strain. The good news is he's going to play on Sunday. And I like that Coach Wilks, he's playing his natural position. It's now or never. I know he's under contract for the next few years, but they're expecting to get something out of this guy. When they went to the 4-3 defense, he's playing his natural position. He's got Chandler Jones next to him. He's got Corey Peters next to him. He's got Buck Buchanan and Bynes behind him. He has to be disruptive. Now, I don't want him, sit here and say he's got to fill up the stat sheet, but create havoc, explosion off the ball, get in the backfield, disrupt Alex Smith, get a tackle for loss. He does his job. The guy next to him could come in and clean the play up. So it's time. I mean, it's time for him. And again, he knows what's going on here. He's aware of people are counting on him now, and I don't think he wants to let his teammates down.
Well, it's the expectation, yeah, you're a first-round draft pick, but it's the expectation for what Wilks wants with this particular position along that defensive front. They need someone to be disruptive. I don't think stats will be nice and everything, but it's what you see on game film maybe after the fact. As you said, did he take up 2 players? Did he force a ball carrier away or into the teeth of the defense to where someone else is making a play? Because as we've seen before, whether it's Robert Kimdichie or Rodney Gunter or Corey Peters, their names aren't going to be on that top 5, top 10 tackle list.
No, and listen, Olsen Pierre's pushing for more playing time. I mean, this guy was, he's probably doesn't get as much conversation because he wasn't a first-round pick. They think this much of Olsen Pierre. They put him on the 53-man roster 2 years ago. They kept 9 linemen. He was inactive every single game. That's what they thought about him. The thought was, we got to start stacking that line if we lose a guy like Calais Campbell. So, and that happened. So Rodney Gunter's pushing for playing time. But we talked about it over the last couple of weeks. They really like that rotation there. Now, when you get Marcus Golden back, it's going to change a little bit. You got some legitimate pass rushers from the edge. But guys are going to have to do their job. And it's not sitting here saying they need 8 sacks in this game and 4 turnovers. It's more about hurries, pressures, and knockdowns. Those lead to turnovers.
Craig Grialou, Mike Jurecki here on Cards Cover 2 with you Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 3 p.m. You can watch live on azcardinals.com/live video or catch us on YouTube. Just search Cards Cover 2. Coast available via a podcast. If you miss a show, downloadable via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. Cardinals and the Washington Redskins on Sunday afternoon from State Farm Stadium. 1:25 is the kickoff. 8:30 pregame coverage along the Arizona Cardinals radio network, and it will mark the return, if you'll bear with me here, but the return of David Johnson. I say the return because, well, we haven't seen him since week 1 of 2017, but David Johnson is back. He's healthy, and we all expect, Michael, that he will be a huge part of this offense.
Well, if this team's going to be successful this year and push for a playoff berth, it starts with the offensive line, protecting Bradford, but he is going to be the bell cow in this offense, and I can't tell you, you can see how motivated he is. He's ready to go, and from a standpoint of, he kind of thinks that he's been forgotten in the past, and I don't know how accurate that is, because when you pop on the film, you could see he's one of the top running backs in the league, but they're expecting big things from David Johnson, but it all starts up front.
Johnson drew a crowd on Wednesday following practice as he met the media. Yeah, he is very much excited about Sunday.
Oh, I'm very anxious. I've been pumped. I've been ready for this since probably the first preseason game. I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I can't wait to get the pads on Sunday and get ready to play. We have also other weapons, but I do feel like I will be a big contributor to the offense, and I hope that I will, because I'm very excited. Like I said, I feel good. I feel the best I've ever felt coming into the season, and I can't wait to get started. It's really good because home field advantage is big, especially here in Arizona. Our crowd gets pretty loud against those guys, and you don't have to worry about the noise as an offense. We can communicate a lot easier, and it feels good to be home. With new coaches, like you said, new teammates, new quarterbacks, everything, it's going to be different. I'm very excited, though, about what we are doing about this, offense, especially offense, not just the team, but, coaches really let us know that we need to be physical, start off the line of scrimmage, being able to just ground and pound, run the ball first, which is what I like to hear. I'm telling you, 1,000 my goal. And so, I played receiver a little bit. I actually supposed to play receiver in college. Everyone knows the story, so I'm glad I'm still being utilized as a receiver.
He added, MJ, that, quote, everyone has got a question mark on me, and it'd be one thing if this were the injury that he was coming off of was a knee, a leg, foot, an ankle. It's a wrist injury. He's running fine. As he said, he's in the best shape of his life. He should be. He's had all kinds of time to rehab and get stronger and get better. Yes, there is that contract. I don't think it's a distraction whatsoever. He keeps getting asked about it, but he's not bringing it up himself. He just seems, as he mentioned, he's anxious, but I don't think he's too far ahead of himself, meaning he's going to go out and try to get those 1,000 yards on the first carry on Sunday.
Yeah, but again, though, just because he hadn't taken the beating from last year, he's well ahead of a lot of different guys. For a guy, obviously age-wise, Larry's up there with 35, and just the grind of a 16-game schedule. He's been rehabbing for a long time, and listen, it's not only in the running game, it's also in the passing game. He's a dual threat. So it's also going to start with the line and David Johnson. And, Steve Keim was on with Doug and Wolf this morning on 98.7 FM. And, listen, he is part of the core moving forward. Both parties want to get a deal done. And David's going to focus on football. He says all the time, my agent's here to take care of that. The Cardinals want to get a deal done. It's just a matter of time. But right now the focus has to be on the football field. If he puts up numbers, he's going to build more of a case why they should keep him. And they want to keep him. He's part of the core moving forward.
And he could put up some real large numbers on Sunday, because a year ago this Redskins defense dead last against the run. 134 yards they allowed per game. Now, I understand that was 2017. This is 2018. But until you show that you can stop, whether it's David Johnson or Chase Edmonds or TJ Loken or whoever it is, I would fully expect the Cardinals to run.
Yeah, but I think if you're the Washington Redskins, you got to think that was a point of emphasis in the offseason. That's the reason why they selected Deron Payne from Alabama the year ago.
Well, they've gone Alabama back-to-back years as far as first-round draft picks.
And Jonathan Allen, now he had a shoulder injury his first year, was kind of on the shelf. Again, we talked about them having 23 guys. So that has to be a point of emphasis for them coming into this game, knowing who they're going against. And that's going to be where the offensive line has to win one-on-one matchups. We talked about Ryan Kerrigan against Andre Smith. Who goes against the two tackles from Alabama? Well, that's going to be possibly Mason Cole and Mike Upati and Justin Pugh. So they got to take care of the interior. And obviously you want to chip a guy like Ryan Kerrigan, but really it's going to start up front. I got to think that was one of the things they discussed in the offseason, how to get better there. And that also includes their linebackers. If the guys are able to occupy space up front, that's where the linebackers try to come in and make plays. If we're seeing the Cardinals linemen get to the second layer, they're winning the line of scrimmage.
Now, offensive coordinator Mike McCoy playing coy a little bit, if you will, because, yes, they ran very vanilla offense in the preseason. He was even asked this week, how much haven't we seen? And everyone really not saying too much because, as he mentioned, Mike McCoy, that the preseason was about evaluating players, not so much about the offense as a whole. But now I think you'll really see what this offense, at least what they plan it to be on paper, come to fruition on the field.
The impression I get is we're going to see multiple formations. So we talked about it. Anybody that's dressed, they're going to be part of the game plan. It could be small, big, or large. So multiple formations means we're going to see two backs at some time. We're going to see two tight ends. We could see 3 wide, 4 wide. They want to get the ball into the playmakers' hands, and if you give a guy like Chad Williams, Christian Kirk, a couple guys, even Chase Edmonds coming out of the backfield, you give these guys some space, they could get yards after catch. So it's not going to be just, let's go jumbo package, let's line up and run the football. They're going to move it around a little bit. Now, will they throw the ball down the field? That remains to be seen. But again, those intermediate routes to obviously get first downs.
That's Mike Jurecki. I'm Craig Grialou. Appreciate you listening in on this edition of Cards Covered 2. Your questions via social media a little bit later on in the show. Hashtag Cards Covered 2. Hashtag Cards Covered 2 using the number 2. This season also number 15. Can you believe that? 15 for Larry Fitzgerald, who does not show any signs of slowing down so far in what we've seen in practice or the preseason. But Fitz meets the media on Thursday. The chair is put in front of his locker, and everyone circles around. So what we're going to do here on Cards Covered 2 each and every Friday, we call it Fitz Fridays, the best of Larry Fitzgerald when he meets with the media.
When you know what to expect and kind of what your role is, like it's kind of, you know. And now I don't have any clue. I have no idea on Sunday, what my role is going to be, if I'm going to get any ball, all this stuff is brand new. So, I mean, it's exciting. I'm hoping we're able to spread it out and more guys are be able to contribute, like we were able to do in, like 15. I mean, I had a good year, but, Mike had a big season. Smoke was really dominant. You look at Chris Johnson's year, you look at David Johnson, like the more guys you have that teams have to be able to account for, I think the more opportunities and the more explosive your offense can be, because you have to prepare for so much more. When you have just this guy or this guy, I mean, it's a little different. So I'm hoping we're able to spread it out. Ricky's had a great spring. I mean, I look for really, really big year for him. I mean, the guy can put his foot in the ground and separate. Great high point in the football. I mean, Chad's going to get a great opportunity. Stepping out here this Sunday. Christian Kirk is going to be phenomenal. Obviously, Chase to show what he's capable of doing when he gets his opportunity. So we got a lot of guys who are going to be able to help us and get Jermaine Gresham back. And I mean, it's going to be fun, especially at home. That energy, that enthusiasm that our crowd shows is nothing like it. It's great. Just being in those type of atmosphere. It's really a great home field advantage. Selling out every game since we've been out there, and I'm looking forward to going out there and playing.
Now, Fitz is never one to open up, but as far as him saying, I don't know what my role is, you know what your role is. You're the number 1 receiver on this offense, and you can expect several Sam Bradford pass attempts to Larry Fitzgerald. And if it's anywhere in the vicinity of number 11, he's going to come up and catch that ball. He enters this season, by the way, 92 catches away from second place on the all-time receptions list, 390 receiving yards from second place on the all-time receiving yardage list. Asked about that, though, on Thursday, Fitz, quote, "I never play for second." He did acknowledge he has no chance of catching Jerry Rice at number one.
Sure he does.
But by the end of this season, Larry Fitzgerald will be number 2 in 2 very important categories for receivers.
Yeah, he'd have to play about 4 or 5 more years. I don't see that. It's a year-to-year proposition. Hopefully he comes back next year. I think what he was saying is until you get into the game, you really don't know the play calling of Mike McCoy. I mean, clearly he's going to be targeted. Okay, do we see him on the outside? Do they let Kirk play a little bit on the inside? Do they see a matchup in the secondary that Larry can go down the field on those 50-50 balls? So I think he was just saying you don't know until you get into the fire, and we'll learn more in the next couple of weeks. It's not going to happen overnight. And I agree with them. Like last night, an example. Julio Jones, we know he's a great receiver, led the league in the NFC in yardage last year. He was targeted 19 times. He had 10 balls for close to 150 yards. Their first-round pick, Calvin Ridley, was targeted 0 times. They also have Mohamed Sanu. Spread the ball around, and they have playmakers. We talk about, you look at Larry, David, Seals-Jones. You throw in Kirk, Williams. Now they got to catch the ball, and it's thrown to him. And if Gresham plays, he's another option there. So spread it around. And I think you always bring up the stat. Bradford, all his completions in the preseason. His first 7 over how many receivers?
7 different receivers.
Yeah. I mean, that's spreading the ball around. It's great to rely on one guy if you don't want to attack that matchup. But there's enough talent here. You don't have to rely just on one guy. Again, it starts with David and Larry Fitzgerald.
And Mike McCoy did say this week that he's not a big script as far as the play calls are concerned. It kind of depends on where they are in the field and what point in the game as far as where they start on that first possession. This is Cards Cover 2. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals and Washington Redskins come your way 1:25 on Sunday afternoon from State Farm Stadium. The Washington Redskins a year ago 7-9. This is Jay Gruden's 5th season. They have not won a season opener under Coach Gruden. Earlier, we had a chance to catch up and kind of go behind the scenes, know your enemy, if you will, as far as the Washington Redskins and on their side, what they are thinking about the Cardinals matchup. We caught up with Larry Michael, the longtime play-by-play voice of the Redskins. So let's dive into this matchup here and look first on the Arizona Cardinals on the offensive end, the return of David Johnson and how the Redskins might try to counter that as far as stopping number 31.
Well, you know what? He's one of the best there is, and I don't know, how you stop him. I think you have to game plan to, get him at the line of scrimmage. If you let him get free, obviously he can do damage. He's also a great receiver. So you're going to have to really account for him on every offensive play, and I would think for David Johnson, having missed most of last year, he feels like he's ready to bust out, and he's looking to have a big opening game for the season to kind of make up for the fact he didn't get a chance to play much last year. And I think that's one of the keys. Obviously, you can't in this game. You can't neglect the other players, though. I mean, this is pro football, the NFL, so everybody out there is capable of beating you. But Johnson's a special guy. And I would think that he's raring to go, so the Redskins are going to have to scheme it up. Redskins have put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of draft picks into that defense. And stopping the run is something they have to do this year. That's something that was not a success for the Redskins last year. And so, last couple of years they've used their number 1 picks on 2 defensive linemen out of Alabama, Jonathan Allen and Teron Payne. So that's an indication of what they're trying to concentrate on. And this is going to be a big test for the Redskins defense, trying to stop David Johnson. No doubt about that.
Hey, Larry, Mike McCoy is the offensive coordinator. He installed a new playbook. Obviously, the matchup the Cardinals are looking at is Ryan Kerrigan on the left side going against Andre Smith. We know Bradford's very accurate. How do you think they're going to approach Sam Bradford if he gets rid of the ball, in less than 3 seconds or 2.5?
Well, obviously pass rush is the most important thing. And I think one thing the Redskins are hoping this year is to get a little more push up front. And important thing. And I think one thing the Redskins are hoping this year is to get a little more push up front and not just relying on their edge rushers. And Kerrigan is creeping up the all-time list. He's number 3 all-time. He's never missed a game. This guy's like a cyborg. And Preston Smith's in his final year of his rookie contract, and he's looking for double-digit sacks this year. So I think the Redskins do have some edge rushers, but the difference this year for them, they want it to be pressure from the inside. And again, going back to those defensive linemen, Matt Ioannidis, Ziggy Hood, they've got 6 interchangeable defensive linemen in their 3-4 defense, and they really like to see some push up the middle. In terms of Sam Bradford, I mean, he's a veteran. He's seen just about everything there is to see. I think, again, I got to go back to stopping David Johnson being the number one key. And then, put the pressure on Sam Bradford. You always try to make the opposition one-dimensional, but with this Cardinal team and with the skill set of David Johnson, it's kind of hard to do that. So, in terms of pressure on Bradford, I think they're looking to get some pressure up the middle. And if they do that, that's going to help those guys on the outside.
All right, what kind of role do you anticipate from Adrian Peterson?
Well, he's going to start the game at the running back position for the Redskins. And very, very quick change of events here. It happened, I guess you can go back to the first preseason game when Darius Geis tore his ACL in that first preseason game against the Patriots. The complexion of the running game changed overnight because he would have been the starter. He's a second-round pick. He showed a lot of promise. The guy's got a lot of ability, but he got hurt. And so then the running back position became kind of an open competition between Rob Kelly and Samaje Perine. Perine got hurt during the preseason, and Kelly was ineffective in one of the preseason games. So I think it was a decision the team made to bring in Peterson and see, basically what everybody else was wondering, what does he have left? And he got into the preseason game 3. He looked really good. He looked good. He carried the ball 11 times and positive yardage every time he touched the ball. And you guys probably know more than me about how he looked last year in the regular season, which is what counts. And again, this year, I think, there's still people who speculate, what does he have left? And probably going to, obviously going to move into 10th place all time if he gets any yardage on Sunday. So I think in the history books, his position is secure, but he feels that he's got a lot left, and he feels that he wants to prove it. But how many carries he gets, guys, is your guess as good as mine, because I think you do have other backs. I mean, Chris Thompson last year was a very, very versatile back. He's back from injury. They want to get him the ball in open space. So maybe it's a rotation of running backs, but Peterson will start, and we'll see how he does.
Staying on that offensive end as we talk with Redskins play-by-play voice Larry Michael here on Cards Cover 2. Your new quarterback, Kirk Cousins, is out. Alex Smith is in. How is he assimilating to a brand-new team and a brand-new offense as well?
Well, this guy's a full-grown man. There's not a whole lot you're going to throw him that he hasn't seen before, and that is, a big difference in what the Redskins have had the last several years. The last several years, they've had young guys learning the ropes, moving their way up the ladder, first with Robert Griffin III, and then obviously Kirk slid in there, and he was very effective, and we know he went on to the big contract in Minnesota. But Alex Smith, I think that he wants to win. I don't think he's looking to impress anybody. I don't think he's looking to prove anything. I think he wants to win. And I think his leadership ability has been such that everybody out there, everybody on the football team, has kind of rallied behind him and next to him. He just got that kind of leadership ability. Not saying the other guys didn't, but this is a unique guy who's seen a lot in the National Football League, gets a lot of respect from a lot of people, and he's very, very smart. He's picked up this offense no problem. And you look at, some of the things that need to improve with the Redskins to win this year, third down conversions, red zone efficiency, backing down on key turnovers. And Smith's coming off a year where he was almost perfect, led the NFL in terms of fewest interceptions, completion percentage, quarterback rating. And to think he can do that back-to-back years, maybe you're asking a lot. But Jay Gruden's offense is such. We've seen Kirk Cousins put up numbers the last few years that are just record-breaking for the Redskins. So, I think that from the off-the-field leadership standpoint, he's been outstanding. And on the field, a big conversation here in D.C. recently has been, did the offense get enough reps in preseason games? And this is, I think, around the NFL, everybody keeps talking about it. Do you run the risk of injury or do you want to get reps?
Right.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers threw 4 passes all preseason. I guess they're not worried about him. So it depends on the quarterback, depends on the situation. Alex said to me on a podcast that we do that he thought he got enough work. It's not like he needs to get out there and work. And again, you get a second-team offensive line, and you got to maybe you have the first on one side, you have seconds on the other. The way different teams approach preseason, I don't think you can draw a specific correct conclusion. I think nobody really has a right opinion. It all depends on the team. And I think he's been great, but you know what? Like he says, all the time for talk is over. He's got to win and win now.
Yeah, we're having those same conversations when it comes to Sam Bradford and Josh Rosen. All right, last question for you. I know it's only week 1, but how pivotal is a game for either the Cardinals or Redskins just to get off to a good start?
Well, obviously, for the Redskins, they've got 2 at home, then a bye. A real early bye this year on their schedule. So for the Redskins, I think you're going to hope to come out to the desert and get a win and come back and have 2 home games and get off to a real fast start. I mean, the football guys will say no game is more important than the other, and still got to play all 16 and play them as they're scheduled. But for both teams, I mean, Arizona's got a first-year head coach who's got a lot of confidence and a lot of pride and a lot of ability. He doesn't want to start off without a win. And next week you guys go to the Rams, which is not an easy game. The Redskins going to host Indianapolis and Green Bay. So the first game, I think, kind of sets the tone around the NFL. Half the teams win, half the teams lose, barring ties. And obviously, it's not insurmountable if you lose the first game. But, man, it's good to have that nice buzz on Monday after a win. I know that's what the Redskins are headed west for.
Yeah, Sunday afternoon, 1:25 is the kickoff. Larry, we appreciate a couple of minutes of your time here, and safe travels to Arizona.
Thank you, fellas. Look forward to getting out there.
Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you, Larry.
Bye now.
That was Larry Michael earlier here on Cards Cover 2, and I want to go back to what we discussed with him, and that is the Redskins' new quarterback in Alex Smith, who, he just wins ball games. He produces time in and time again. He's coming off his best season of his NFL career, set career highs in completions, passing yards, touchdown passes, and passer rating. Kansas City didn't seem to want him. Washington said, we're going to move on from Kirk Cousins. They've acquired now Alex Smith. They've got Adrian Peterson in the backfield. More on him in a moment. But this offense now for Washington with a brand new quarterback going into a system that's been around for a little while. There's a lot of unknown on Sunday for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, and there was a report that came out this afternoon from Jay Gruden about Adrian Peterson. He hasn't fully grasped the entire playbook. And in fairness to him, obviously once their first round or their draft pick went down, they brought him in. He clearly was in shape. So I'd be curious to see if he gets 10 to 15 touches. Now, we know every running back will tell you, I need my 20 because you get +2, -1, then you can rip off a 15-yarder. The thing is, though, it'd be interesting because Alex Smith, even when he was at Utah under Urban Meyer, before he was the first overall pick in the draft, he did run the spread offense. Now, in the NFL, it's more RPO, read pass option, run pass option. And then they also can come out of the zone read where he's basically in a shotgun formation about 3 yards behind the center, and he's looking at the defensive ends. We know, covering Adrian Peterson last year, he doesn't want anybody in front of him, and his toes are at least 7 to 8 yards back behind the line of scrimmage. I'm wondering how that, because you don't want to tip your hand that we're going to run the ball. Cardinals will stack the line. But Alex Smith, he has the mobility to get outside the pocket. He's very accurate throwing on the run. He can extend plays with his legs. Now, he's not going to run to get hurt. He'll run the slide or get out of bounds. So that is another factor. I'm not saying he's Russell Wilson where you got to put a spy on him because I don't think the Cardinals will do that. But I'm curious to see where he lines up on some of those run plays with Adrian Peterson. Does he go under center and just give him the ball and let him run? Or are they going to try to do other things with the read pass option?
Well, how the Cardinals defend the Washington Redskins and Alex Smith falls under the direction of defensive coordinator Al Holcomb. Is he watching Kansas City film? Is he watching Redskins film from last season? That question was posed to the defensive coordinator on Thursday.
You watch a lot of the Redskin tape from 2017, and you see a different quarterback. So you got to keep everything in perspective and understand that that's their system, that's their scheme. And then obviously, with Alex being in a different system in previous years, you may just go back and watch some of his tendencies, some of the things that he likes to do, and just try to go. We're playing, the Washington Redskins, we're playing that system, and we'll be ready for him.
Adrian Peterson isn't the youngest back, but he's still a very physical back. When a guy runs that hard, what unique challenges does it pose for a defense?
Well, we got to tackle him. We got to tackle. He's a big back. He's physical. He's aggressive. He runs hard. We know that. And, we got to come and we got to, play behind our pads and get ready to play, really, with him. Now, obviously, Coach has a defensive background, and he may suggest something or he may say, hey, what about something like this? But up to this point, I've called every single defense this preseason and moving forward. But, we've got to do a good job of trying to still affect the quarterback in different ways, getting our hands up, playing good coverage, making them hold the ball. Those, front and coverage work hand in hand. So it's got to be a collaborative effort between the D-line and the back seven.
That's interesting because, obviously Wilkes' background is defensive backs, defensive coordinator. Now he's the head coach, and he's maintained that the communication has been good throughout the preseason with the coordinators, and obviously, being able to talk to the booth if they want to challenge a play. This is interesting where he said he's calling all the plays. Now, as the head coach, he may see something a little bit different, suggest it, but Al Holcomb's making the calls, and I think that's good that he's allowing his coordinators to dictate what they do because you spend so much time with that side of the ball during meetings and practice, and he trusts those guys because he's got to worry about, do I go for fourth down? Are we going to challenge this play? How is our offense playing? Can we afford to bring pressure on the quarterback to maybe force a turnover? So I'm glad that he's delegating to what allows him to be a head coach, especially his first game.
Well, he's got to pay attention to all what you just said and in all three phases as well, even if the defense is out on the field.
Right.
So, yes, this is Al Holcomb's defense as defensive coordinator, just like it is Mike McCoy's offense as offensive coordinator. But another wrinkle on all this is Adrian Peterson as far as what to expect from him. Former Arizona Cardinals, 6 games last season with the Cardinals, had 2 outstanding games, over 100 yards, but then the injury against Jacksonville, and we didn't see him again, placed on injured reserve, and only recently gets signed by the Washington Redskins. And how much does he have left in the tank? And right now, no one really knows.
Yeah, I mean, again, what if he gets 12 to 15 carries versus 25, 30? Now, if the latter happens, that means he's able to run the ball, and they're playing with the lead there. He needs 37 yards to surpass Marshall Faulk and Jim Brown. Clearly a Hall of Famer. I think if you have an offensive line that can open holes like they did for him last year, I just don't think he's a 25 to 30 guy. And he's not great in pass protection, and he's not great with his hands. So I don't see him going out for passes. Now, they may have him go in motion to try to use him as a decoy. Chris Thompson, I think, is the best third down back in football. He hasn't played a single snap in the preseason. He's going to be on a snap count. So it'd be interesting how they do that rotation. But if Peterson's hot, he's going to get the ball. But now it comes down to what are the other players, because they're going to want to throw it a little bit. They have some good receivers. They don't have a number one receiver, and they got 2 quality tight ends in Jordan Reed, who's finally healthy, and Vernon Davis.
Yeah, and the Cardinals, though, are aware of Peterson. Coach Wilkes on a running back that he is very familiar with, Adrian Peterson.
Adrian, still a hard-nosed runner, talked to the guys about that this morning a little bit. He's going to come in, ready to prove a point, and that's just Adrian. I've had the opportunity to go against him early in his career when I was at Chicago and he was at Minnesota, and very hard runner, tough, physical guy, and we're going to have to wrap up. We're going to get 11 guys to the ball.
By the way, AD, very complimentary of his time with the Cardinals, speaking to the Washington media this week. Quote, "It was a great time. The Bidwells, they showed me so much love and gave me an opportunity and just treated me a first-class organization." And it was an opportunity. Now, the Cardinals had a need, but he certainly, if he hadn't gotten hurt, it might have been much better than what we had saw.
I remember that day. We were doing the Red Sea report, and we got winded that he made the trade. And we talked about all the energy he brought into the locker room. Now, obviously, injury started to mount up. He went through 3 different quarterbacks. It didn't end the way he wanted. And the Cardinals obviously wanted to get somebody that was similar to David Johnson. They obviously ID'd Chase Edmonds in the draft. But did you see that cut? Wilkes smiling when he answered that?
Yeah, he and everyone else is aware that if you don't wrap up Adrian Peterson,
could be a long day
by you, and all of a sudden we're going to have another off to the races over 100 yards, and that run defense, which was an issue in the preseason, could creep up.
No arm tackling, gang tackling, swarm to the football. You don't want to let him run over you.
Cards Cover 2 here on this Friday. Your questions via social media just ahead. Get those in. Hashtag Cards Cover 2. Hashtag Cards Cover 2 using the number 2 before that. However, we're going to open up the Big Red Vault one last time this week as we flash back to another Cardinals-Redskins matchup. This all the way back in 2000, November to be specific. Days ahead of a huge vote, yes, on Prop 302. And this, well, I think I'm not alone in this, but this game on Sunday played a large role in that proposition passing on Tuesday.
Second down, goal to go. Washington at the Cardinals' 1-yard line. Jeff George, the quarterback, give it to Davis again. He's bends it. He fumbles it into the end zone. The Cardinals have it. Out of there comes Aeneas Williams with it. He's on the 10. He's on the 20. He's down the sideline of the 40. He's in midfield. He's going. He's going.
And let's hope it transcends into Arizona wins on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
51-49, that vote that created the funding mechanism for the stadium in Glendale, now named State Farm Stadium, but certainly Aeneas Williams, the fumble return for a score. That, to me, if they lose that game, I don't know, MG. I don't know if that vote passes.
Well,
Tuesday.
It was so close. It was 51-49. Now, I have a story to tell about that. That happened in the first quarter, okay? And initially, I think they marked it a 102-103 fumble return for touchdown. Now, Jake Plummer was playing in that game. That was when the Redskins had Steven Davis. You remember how effective he was? He was a bowling ball. I think he had 146 yards in that game. Deion Sanders actually had an interception in that game for the Redskins, believe it or not. Okay, so the following day, Mr. Bidwell and Larry Wilson went to Sun Devil Stadium, and they measured, and it turned out it was 104 yards, and that is the NFL record for a fumble recovered for touchdown. Now, on that prior Saturday, Dave McGinnis, the head coach, Rob Moore, wide receiver, John Junker from the Fiesta Bowl, and also Jake Plummer, Rob Moore, McGinnis, they went door to door trying to convince people to vote for this. And after the game, McGinnis, the players lifted him up on their shoulders. He actually went into the stands, and the security guards are like, "We got to get you in the locker room, coach." The energy and the momentum going into that vote, and it was close, okay? 51-49, but I just the fact that they won that game and you had a good feeling going to work on Monday, and when you went to the polls on Tuesday, you made a decision, and we were behind it. And I remember being down there at the convention center when it passed, and then they had to do kind of a recount, and I'm like, finally the Cardinals are going to get some revenue streams, and I think we see the fruits of the labor moving into the new building.
And now a new 18-year agreement with State Farm for the naming rights on that stadium. As Brandon Natus, the Cardinals manager of social media, joining us now here on Cards Cover 2 with your questions. Time for the Bird Gang to sound off, Brandon.
So a couple cool things there. Well, one, I'll bring my notepad next time because I could take history lessons from you guys here. But 18-year deal, and that happened 18 years ago. And then that helped us get the new stadium. And then this is the first game with the newly named stadium. So
wow, full circle.
Some cool parallels there. We'll get to the questions, and I'll shut up soon. So first question from Twitter, Cardinals31. Who do you predict to have a better passer rating in the game this Sunday, Bradford or Alex Smith? And who do you think rushes for more yards, David Johnson or Adrian Peterson?
Well, I think David Johnson rushes for more yards. Passer rating, you got two of the more accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah. I'll go David Johnson with the rushing total, but Alex Smith with the passer rating.
I'd probably go that route just because, they're probably using some of his offense he had in Kansas City where even though Sam Bradford's been in a lot of systems, this is a brand new playbook. And I'll agree with David Johnson just because he could get more touches and more opportunities.
Plus, if you go Bradford and Johnson's like homers, you know what I mean? You can't have that too, so I appreciate it. Next question, and this person made sure to include Ohm's handle in it. Bird Gang UK. So it says, what do you think is more likely to happen? David Johnson getting 1,000 yards rushing and receiving, it'll be each, or Chandler Jones getting to 20 sacks?
I'll go David Johnson again. 17 was an awful lot, although if you had talked to him, he said he'll miss like 5 or 6 a year ago, but 20 is a lot.
Yeah, David's going to have more opportunities. I mean, Chandler Jones is going to be a marked man this year, and he's playing with his hand in the dirt, which he's put on some weight, but I still think he could be effective. I think he still gets double digits, whether it's 15, 16, 17. I mean, the record's 22. And so I would go with David Johnson. I don't know if he gets 2,000 combined. Definitely 1,400, 1,500 rushing, maybe 700 or 800 receiving.
All right. So Wobbies, we're going to Instagram now, where we get some great handles each week. Are we the underdog this week?
It's actually a pick'em game, and I think it's just because maybe when they were looking at the line, You didn't know about Bradford, but it's been clear he's been a starting quarterback. Usually a home team gets 3 points, but it's a pick-em game, so flip a coin.
Another question we had come in. Marcus Golden was ruled out this week. When do you think he'll return?
Well, since he wasn't placed on the physically unable to perform list, my guess is they're expecting him well ahead of the 6 weeks timetable. So I'm looking at week 3. I don't think he'll play as much as the Cardinals would love him to be on the field, and probably him as well against the Rams. I'll shoot for week 3 against Chicago.
Yeah, he hasn't been cleared to practice yet, so that's important. Probably need about a week and a half, 2 weeks to practice. So sometime in September, sooner rather than later, they definitely need him back.
And when he does come back, there'll probably be a situation you would think where they would ease him in. He wouldn't go full reps, right?
Just because of conditioning, and you want to make sure you take care of him. Now, this isn't a coaching decision. This isn't a general manager. This is a medical decision to clear him. Yeah, I would think he'd be on a snap count.
All right, got a couple more for you. Is our young wide receiver core going to be a problem for us this year?
No, I
just catch the ball.
Yeah, honestly, they're confident with them. They're going to bring in some receivers for workouts, but that's more of a ready list. Listen, Chad Williams, we'll see. Christian Kirk, when the brights are light, we'll see if they make plays. J.J. Nelson's got to hold on to the ball. Again, they're just going to rely on those guys. You got Fitz, David, and Ricky Seals-Jones. But are they going to have 70 catches this year? Probably not. But I hope that all three across the board can have between 40 and 50, and that will really help out to Sam Bradford being able to distribute the football.
Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about how many sacks you think Chandler may get this year. How many do you think this defense will get on Sunday versus Washington?
Alex Smith is pretty elusive there in the pocket. I'm not too familiar. I don't know what to expect with the Washington offensive line. I'll go over under 3.
I'll take the over. Al Holcomb, Steve Wilkes, they like the blitz. They're not going to let you sit back there and pad that ball and throw it to the guy you want to. They want to get him off his mark. I'll go 4 sacks or more.
And be interesting to see if this is the week that we see Adrian Peterson come off the edge for the first time in a real game outside of what we saw in preseason, or a Budda Baker to figure out to try to get some more pressure and knock Smith off his spot.
We've been able to see Patrick Peterson, Jamar Taylor, Budda Baker. They'll bring in Bethea. They'll bring in Boston. So I just think they're not going to allow him to sit there and pick him apart. They're going to bring the blitz.
Okay, and we have one more question for you. We appreciate everyone sending in their questions. What are you most excited for this season?
Well, I'm excited to see this team, make some jump from the last couple of years. Listen, I know the expectations aren't as high. This team is like flying under the radar. Let me just say this. I'm picking these guys to go 9-7. And you know how it works. If you get lucky and you got to stay healthy, maybe you get to 10 wins. Maybe you're going to go 8-8. But they were 5-4 last year with Drew Stanton and Blaine Gabbert. No disrespect to those guys. They went in there and did their job. Obviously, they lost Carson Palmer. He only played 7, but they were 5-4 with those 2 quarterbacks. I will take this quarterback room over those 2 guys.
Big start to the season, too, with 3 of the first 4 at home. And if you can have success, early success, that only gains the confidence not only amongst the quarterbacks, but also those guys in that locker room.
Yeah, I would agree with that, just because 3 out of your first 4 at home, you want to get off to a good start. 5 of your final 8 are on the road. There's difficult road trips. If you could scratch out 5, 6 at home, get a couple more on the road, now you're sitting at 8 or 9 wins, and then you find out where you are in the month of December.
I'm a little disappointed. I thought when I asked what you're most excited for this season, you would say answering the social questions on Cards Cover 2.
Well, that's coming up next.
Thanks, guys.
We'll do that Tuesdays and
Brandon.
Thursdays, Brandon.
Thanks.
Appreciate Brandon Hayes here on Cards Cover 2. We'll get more of your questions in on Monday, and a special shout-out to the British Bird Gang as well. Appreciate everyone out there, international here on Cards Cover 2.
They are great fans. Now, I wasn't fortunate enough to go to London, but Jimmy Omohundra was, and a lot of the people that work here, and they showed up in full force. They represented. They're always active on Twitter, so we appreciate you tuning in and listen.
Well, now that we're in the building,
yeah,
I vote to go back at any point next season or the season after that.
Yeah, I think you may be alone there, but listen, eventually you're going to go back to London.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun to watch from afar last season. So that is going to wrap up this edition here on Cards Cover 2. Again, Cardinals and Redskins coming your way on Sunday, 1:25 from State Farm Stadium. And, of course, full recap on Monday here from the facility at 3 p.m. Special thanks to Tim Delaney, Jim Omohundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Brandon Natus, Jackson Sipes, and Jesse Aranda as we leave you here on this Football Friday. Get you excited for a little 2018 season opener, Cardinals and Washington Redskins. This is Cards Cover 2.
As the seasons change from summer to fall, this wonderful game returns as a thread in the fabric of our lives. And Sunday is once again about faith, family, and football. The Cardinals embark on their quest behind a new leader, convicted in his belief of basic, hard-nosed football.
Physicality and effort.
Defense. Run the ball. Control the line of scrimmage. Play smart. This is the Cardinals' new dogma. The first chance to prove its worth comes against Washington.
And a touchdown to give the Cardinals the lead back.
Redskins. Cardinals. Sunday,